Today I've come out to a beautiful overgrown lake, and my aim of this session is to show you guys how to catch carp with the simplest method ever, freelining. Got him! Oh wow, that was cool. That was really cool. Amazing watching him take the bait there. One of the advantages of freelining, and one of the reasons why I love it so much, is because you don't need very much tackle. However, today I've brought a few things which are going to be important in helping me catch carp today. These things are a net, which I will of course need if I catch something, an unhooking mat, which is handy to put the fish on, but also doubles up as a bag to keep a few bits and pieces inside. Inside there I've got a waist pouch. This waist pouch, I'm not wearing it right now, but later on I'll wear it around my waist, clip that on, and it means I can keep my bait inside the waist pouch. So I can walk around the lake, wade out into the lake, and I've always got bait on hand to access. In there I've got a catapult too, which is the first thing I used when I arrived today. I found a few fish and catapulted out some pellets with this, so introducing a little bit of bait early on will hopefully get the fish ready and feeding for when I make a cast in a little bit. And last, but definitely not least, is my rod and reel combo. Anything of around the sort of 9, 10 or 11 foot length is good for freelining. You need a little bit of length to help with the cast because you obviously don't have any weight on the line. The line that runs through that is 8-pound breaking strain. You can go stronger if the fish where you are bigger, but here they don't go massive, so 8 pounds should be fine. The line is loaded onto a 1300 size fixed spool reel. A nice fixed spool reel like this with a good clutch on it, it's pretty much all you need when freelining. Before I can start fishing, I need to take the end of my line, grab a hook, because the only terminal tackle that you need for this method is a hook. That's literally it. No floats, weights, feeders, lead setups, leaders, none of that. Just a good old mixer hook. I find these mixer hooks have got a nice light wire. They're quite thin. That means they're not very heavy. So it means when you're using floating baits, the hook doesn't drag the bait down and make it sink too quickly. I'll thread this hook onto the line and tie a good old simple half blood knot. Any strong knot will also do, but a blood knot's one of my favourites. Just wet it down, pull it tight. I'll trim the tag end, and that's as easy as it gets. That is the simplest fishing rig you will ever see, and I'm hoping today it catches me some nice carp. Oh, nearly forgot. Polarizing sunglasses, or polarized sunglasses. I don't know what you call them. The lenses in these bad boys just cut out all of the glare. So whereas it would be really reflective and hard to see the fish sometimes, these will definitely help me spot the carp and pick out a big one. There has been a few fish drifting around close in and a few bubbles on that bit of pellet that I put in earlier, but they're really not feeding very confidently. What I have started seeing is some fish further out. They're cruising around on the surface and they look like, especially if it gets a bit warmer later on, looks like they might take a dog biscuit or a bit of bread. So I'm going to put out some floaters and just see how they respond. I think freelining has got to be my favourite way to catch carp, and it's not something that you see a lot of people doing. One of the reasons why is because people think, oh, if you're gonna cast on fish and stalk them and set the hook and everything, it will require so much skill. I can't possibly do that. I'd rather just fish with a bolt rig on the bottom. And that's not quite true, because freelining was probably one of the first tactics I ever used to catch carp. There's certain things though with freelining that will definitely help you get the most out of it. The first thing I'd recommend is make sure you find those fish. Of course, you're only really going to cast out when you're freelining if you see signs of fish. And the sorts of signs that I would be looking for would be bubbles coming up and bursting on the surface, especially small bubbles. Lots of small bubbles is normally a good sign that there's fish feeding. The other thing to look for is fish themselves. At long distance, it can be very hard to pick out whether or not they're fish or if they're just ripples on the surface. But when you creep up to the water quietly, you can sometimes, especially in clear water, see the shapes of carp cruising around. And when you find them, that's going to be your time to freeline. Now, freelining certainly isn't a method that will cover all options or provide you with a method to use in all scenarios, because freelining will not work at longer ranges. Using just a few bits of corn, some bread, maggots on the hook, you're not going to be able to cast that more than 10-15 yards. A big lump of bread, sometimes you can cast that 20 yards or so if you're lucky. But yeah, maggots, corn, that sort of thing, you're looking at just a couple of rod lengths that you'll be able to cast that out. Got him. Well, they're getting a little bit bigger, this one again on the bread. But yeah, really hoping that we can get one, maybe even double this big today. We'll see. So once you've found a carp and it's cruising along in front of you, where do you go and cast? Well, the obvious answer to that is you cast in front of the fish. But depending on how fast that fish is swimming, you've got to time your cast to intercept it. There's no point seeing a fish swimming along quite quickly and landing the bait bang on its head. Not least because most of the time you cast a bait in on a fish's head, it will probably spook off and not come back for a while. But also, if a fish is moving quite quickly, you want to aim to cast a decent distance in front of it, so as it's swimming towards it, the bait has a chance to settle, sit still for a second before the fish notices it. The worst thing you can do is see a fish and cast too close to the fish, like plonking it in right on its head can sometimes scare them away. Likewise, if you cast very, very far in front of the fish, it might change direction before it gets to it. So you've got to try and watch the fish's behaviour, watch how fast it's moving, and then try and put a cast in a metre or so in front of it, maybe a bit further if they're very spooky, and try and sort of intercept that fish as it moves towards where you plan to cast. And this is kind of what makes this tactic so special. I nearly fell off of this tree. Is that you can see smaller fish and actually twitch it out the way, whereas you just can't do that if you've got, you know, a lead and everything on the end. We got him. Well, I really wanted to catch one of the mirrors after getting a couple of the commons. And there's only a handful of beautiful linear carp like this in here, but freelining is one of those ways that you can pick out the fish you want. I got and caught this absolutely stunning little carp. What a beauty. If you're lucky enough for that fish to actually take your bait, when you're surface fishing or fishing with bread or something, you just see that bread disappear inside its mouth, or you see a ripple, the bait's gone, and as soon as that bait is gone, you need to strike. Because if you just wait, the fish will spit it back out again. So the aim is to see the fish come up, take the bait, wait until that bread just about disappears inside the mouth, and bam, you set the hook. Quickly lift the rod, quick as possible, and get that line tight so that you hook the fish. A very soft, gentle strike where you lift the rod really slowly and the line creeps up gradually just gives the fish more time to feel the line, feel the hook, and spit it back out before you get the hook set into that fish's mouth. If your bait has sunk down through the water and it's not in sight anymore, you can't actually see if the fish has taken it, The way you're going to know if you've got a bite is by watching where the line enters the surface. Where that line sort of lays on the surface film, that's the area that you need to watch to see if a fish takes the bait. If a fish does come along and you're lucky enough to get a bite, that line will probably just twitch a little bit. It can sometimes be very, very subtle, just 2 or 3 inches, it will just pull up tight slightly, and then you need to set the hook. Well, I was chasing around the biggest fish in the lake for a little while, trying to catch that one. Got my bait in front of it, sucked it in, spat it straight back out before I had a chance to strike. Didn't see that big fish again, so I decided to cast out in front of the next biggest one I could see, and it was this beautiful, almost fully scaled. I will personally try freelining for carp at any time of year, because at the end of the day, if you can find them, freelining is as good a tactic as any. However, it definitely lends itself to the spring and the summer. We're in early spring now, and this first few warm days of the year are what has brought the fish up in the layers towards the surface. As the year goes on, you probably won't find the fish in the margins or in the very shallow water as much, because the warm sun through summer and autumn means that all of the water column becomes warm. However, early spring now, it's just the very top layer of water that's feeling the sun's warmth, which draws the fish towards the surface and draws them into the margins, making them very catchable for someone like me who wants to catch them freelining. Well, just looking out across the water now, there are still fish cruising around, so I'm going to take my rod, get a little bit more bread ready, and give it another try. And we've got him. If you haven't tried freelining, I strongly suggest that you do. Take some line, tie on a hook on the end, and go find the carp, because it gives you the chance to pick out the fish you want to catch and have a whale of a time doing it. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. For more carp fishing tactics and advice, check out the playlist that's on screen now. In the meantime, I'm going to get this fish back and go home thoroughly happy. A brilliant day's fishing.